What's good, folks? It's Nightmare Frame here with a new First Descendant video, taking a look at the Greg's Reversed Fate and an updated Gley build that's synergized together to output even more damage than you would expect. For those who don't know, Greg's Reversed Fate recently got a buff. And this is a significant buff. Before it would only proc on shields, now it just procs wherever. But to understand more about this weapon, let's take a look at its unique effect. In the stats menu, let's take a look at the base stats. It has a critical rate of 20%, just like the Thunder Cage, pretty decent. It has a 2x critical multiplier, so you're dealing 2 times your damage when you crit, and a 2x weak point damage. That's a really good starting point. So this is a very all-rounder versatile weapon, and it's a tactical rifle, so burst fire, pulse rifle for those Destiny 2 players. Then we go into the unique ability. Reading what it says, on hitting an enemy, proc bombardment. So if you ever see rain of fire just falling on enemies and burning them, that's from Greg. So don't worry, it's not an enemy attack. And then it inflicts burn. So now you have two scaling methods right here. First of all, let's take a look at the bombardment. The trigger rate is 20%. This is on any type of damage. That bombardment will scale of 100% of whatever damage procced it. So let's say you crit. That bombardment will scale of 100% of that damage. But what happens if you crit on a weak point? Since weak point and critical damage are multiplicative to each other, that's insane amounts of damage combination, and that bombardment will scale off of that. And when those bombardments fall, they will also inflict burn. So that's damage over time. And that damage over time will scale of 20% of that firearm damage. This weapon is able to put out a lot. Now that you understand how the weapon works, let's take a look at how we've built it. Now, for my substats, I did go with crit rate, crit damage, and weak point damage alongside firearm attack. But if you're going to only use this for bossing, you could replace that firearm attack with Colossus damage. However, this makes it an all-rounder weapon where you can take it anywhere. So if you want to use it for mobbing and bossing, this is the perfect combination. Now in the module section, I did replace the initial R polarity with an A. So now we have 4 M's. The 4 M's are pretty straightforward. We're going to put it in 2 base damage multipliers. So action reaction alongside rifle reinforcement. Both of these give me 93% firearm attack. And because the weapon already has 2 times weak point damage, I'm going to double down on that with weak point sight and heavy aiming. This, of course, does increase the spread of your pellets, but that doesn't even matter. So right now we have 75% weak point damage increase and a 93% base damage increase. The 4 A's are pretty straightforward. You're going to shove in crit rate and crit damage. I'm only going to be using 1 crit rate mod, which is better insight, and adding on concentration priority alongside better concentration. This is a 95.8% crit damage increase. So our base stats are over here, 2, 20, along with 2 times. We switch it up, we get that increase of 27, 3.9, and 3.5. The last 3 slots here are going to be utility and even some additional multipliers. Fire rate is a given. You got to have that fire rate in there. And I decided to go with magazine capacity. If you're using this on Gley and only on Gley, then you don't have to worry about magazine capacity. But I find that this is such a good utility to have for any weapon. So you can just keep on firing and have some additional damage output. Now, the last mod can be 3 things. And those 3 things are right there in a row. So you can increase your critical hit rate with edging shot. And if you have a descendant that increases the base damage even more, that edging shot, you're not going to feel that minus 15% damage. And then here we have fire enhancement. Remember, elemental damage is a separate instance of damage. So with 1 shot, you're going to have multiple hits. And lastly, you can put in fire conductor. This will increase your base damage by 26% when you're attacking an enemy inflicted with burn. The bombardments are going to cause burn. So that's free base damage increase right there. This makes it a very versatile weapon, even against enemies who have a higher resistance towards fire. So spawning enemies right now in a row and not piled up together. These are all level 100. So with the complete build, if I shoot an enemy, right now you can see all those multiple instances of damage. But if I do end up proccing the bombardment, and it's a crit, look at that. It just killed those enemies with 1 single hit. There you go. That didn't get a bombardment proc, but still very powerful. Gley, who enables this weapon even further. The best thing about your reactor is that you don't need a mounted reactor. The only thing you want is cooldown and duration. That's all you need on your reactor, cooldown and that duration. I'm using Reactor from someone else, but that's all we need, that cooldown and duration. We're not going to be using Massacre or anything like that. And the set bonus is still the same. We're using the Annihilator set bonus. This gives us duration, and we get firearm attack increase proportional to the ratio of max HP loss. So the more you lose HP, the more damage you're going to deal. The main stat here comes with defense, and then you have substat HP, you have defense there, and HP recovery modifier, max HP and defense. Don't worry about the MP recovery, that doesn't do anything for Gley. Then finally we have max HP and some elemental resistance. You can see at the bottom with the final values, you have 20k HP alongside 43k defense. She's pretty tanky and she can take a lot of hits, but then again, her main resource is her health. All right, let's take a look at how we put this build together. The best part is none of the sockets have changed from my previous Gley video. They still are the same. All I did was change 3 mods and then that's it. Starting off with the sub modules. This increases the amount of capacity we'll get alongside the energy activator. So use whichever sub module you want. I like long distance maneuvering, so that's what I'm going to use. Now we have 4 M's here. The first M's are all going to be cooldown reduction and MP conversion. All of this to reduce my cooldown. Remember, Gley does not have any mana, so this has no effect on her. And doubling down on that, I will run focus on non-attribute and focus on dimension. And if you're usually doing massacre, of course, this is what you need to have, and plus it gives you that negative cooldown reduction. Now, if you take a look at the third skill, we have 7.5 seconds cooldown. All of that including the reactor. Now I have 3 R's right here. Since she doesn't care about range, I don't need to run skill expansion, but we need survivability. So I will put defense here for that increase in defense, and then skill extension for the duration. You can go even further with maximized duration. However, I will go with an outstanding investment because this gives me skill duration and that HP heal. So it's really up to you on which one you want to use. And then finally, the last 2 C slots are going to be HP focused, starting off with Steam Accelerant. This grants me a massive 234% max HP, along with that minus MP. Remember, MP does nothing for Gley. And then finishing it off with that increased HP, doubling down on that HP. And finally with the X slot. This depends on where you're going. If you're bossing, you're definitely going to be running Walking a Tightrope. If you're doing anything else, you have HP Collector. Since we're going to be bossing, I will be running that Walk a Tightrope. Now, this is a very standard build right here for any Gley player. But what are we going to use on our skill module? Since we're not running Massacre, we're just focusing on raw power with our weapons. The best thing to use is Predator's Instinct. This gradually increases my firearm attack if I keep firing. Let's have a look at her Frenzy skill. So right now, it shows I get firearm attack increase by 15% and explosive by 15%. If we were to save, it changes to firing time level 1 and 2. And level 1, you get 15%, like normal. And level 2, you get 21% increase in your firearm attack. So all you have to do is hold down the trigger and you gain bonus base damage to your weapons. As you can see, on the all-rounder setup, it's still the same loadout. Of course, when you keep firing, it increases in damage. Oh my god, look at those explosions. So you never want to stop and you just want to keep holding down the trigger. However, if you want even more damage on enemies, you can always replace that, as I said earlier. Hold down the trigger. You're going to see we already have some increased damage right there. We went up to 265k, 297k. Insane damage right there. So you just want to hold down the trigger and shred your enemies. So ladies and gentlemen, this is the new Gley paired up with the Greg's Reverse Fate to deal insane amounts of damage, making bossing even easier. But anyway, folks, that has been it for me. I do hope you enjoyed and learned something from this video. If you did, please feel free to leave a like, share, and subscribe for more First Descendant content, streams, and so much more. Do refer to the description. Thanks for watching, and as always, a peace. Bye-bye now.